All right, we're live. Welcome. Welcome. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Tonight, Tuesday night, is our Anyone Can Farm Experience live chat. And let's see, what's the date today? It's October 24th, 2023. All right, so lots going on. Boy, lots going on. I don't think we're going to talk about what's going on. I don't think we need to do that. I think that my approach to what's going on is there's not much I can do about it. So let's just work on the things we can work on, because that definitely makes a difference. Definitely makes a difference. I figure if if you're listening to this, you're probably a homesteader, probably a sensitive person, maybe even a spiritual person. And it's really hard to hear the things that we're hearing these days and just be apathetic. It's hard to do that. However, allowing it to disrupt you to the point where you do nothing is not going to get anybody anywhere, and nobody. And I think that what we're seeing is more of the same in the direction of chaos and death and destruction and all the things that seem to be the weapons of choice of the side that is losing. So even though it's painful, I think it's necessary, but it's hard. And one of the reasons why we set our homesteads up is so we can be separated from it, so we don't have to be involved in it. So it doesn't have a direct effect on us. And but you hear accounts and you see photos and things like that, and it's tough. It's tough. And I am not heartless. My stance on war is nobody wins. The whole good guys, bad guys scenario, I'm not buying it anymore. I'm just not. I don't know. I just wish the whole thing would stop. And I don't like where it's going either. So I've been, it's got me a little bugged. Yeah, for sure. But if I didn't have something to work on, I could see how, I have retired siblings that kind of watch TV all day. That's what they do. They're TV in the morning and then go do stuff and shop and golf and all that stuff. But they always wind up watching the news. That would be tough. And I think it would shape your head in such a way that things wouldn't feel very good. Myself, I am working towards a homestead that when you come here, you say, oh, this is what you can do. And I was trying to explain this to Jill today, and I'm not sure I have a total handle on it, but I don't want it to be, well, look what I did. That's not really where I'm going with this. I'm more going, look what can be done. Look what a person can do, because everything is sort of jumbled up right now. Left is right and right is left, up is down. And we have people living in this country that are doing really well financially, but they don't really know how to do anything. And then you have people coming from third world countries to our country that know how to do a lot of things, but they're not really given the opportunity to do those things. Instead, they're just handing them money, and it's everything's upside down. So I find solace in my homestead. I get to think about what I want to do the night before, get up in the morning, work my way through the problem that I have, find the solution to what I'm working on, and come out with a product on the other end. And every day that I do that, I get a little bit better at what I'm doing, a little bit better, a little bit better. Things become clearer and clearer and clearer to me. And so I am able to come to the public like this, or at a homesteaders conference or something like that, and I can say, look what you can do. This is what you can do. And then field questions in such a way that people gain understanding of this. So this weekend, before I do that, let me tell you that the show tonight is called Picking Your Processes. Picking Your Processes. And give me a minute on that. I'll get right into it. I know what I want to say. Question is, will I be able to do that? But the show tonight is brought to you by the Anyone Can Farm Tribe Plus, right? And one of the things you get if you're in the Tribe Plus, it's a membership deal that's kind of closed right now. We're kind of revamping things a little bit, is you get manufacturer's discounts on some things. I'm trying to undo my laces here because I want to show you a boot that my wife got for me. And the company that we're working with is Hysea. I'll spell it for you in a minute as soon as I show you this boot that I'm taking off my foot. And these boots, okay, Hysea, Hysea. And these boots were on their website, and with the manufacturer's discounts, they were $70. So I've been getting boots very similar to this, but instead of saying Hysea on it, it says Carhartt on the side, right? But if you look at the tongue, they're the same, Chinese. But this Hysea, I mean, they're not all the same. Just because they're Chinese, they're definitely not all the same. Like if you buy muck boots now, they're no good. They fall apart real quick. The way to go is either dry shod, which we don't have any kind of agreement with them, or the Hysea. Hysea are pretty good, and I think they're under $100, way under $100. But like these boots, I go through a pair of boots like this every 6 months. And the Carhartt ones are $140. These are $70. And I've been wearing these for 4 days now. And right now, I like these better. My feet go in and out of these very easy. It's got these hooks right here, so there's more space to get in, right? And then I just hook them up and tie them. They haven't been untying on me. These are not steel toes. I don't generally wear steel toes on the farm. I don't have anything against steel toes. Nobody makes me wear them, so I don't wear them. I'm pretty careful about that. So anyway, they got a pretty good bottom on them. You know, they get that wedge design like that you'd see old men wearing when you were a kid. But there's more touching the ground, so it distributes your load a lot better. And I don't know. So far 3-4 days wearing them, I like them. When I get a pair of boots that I like, when I go to put them on in the morning, it makes me feel good. And these are making me feel good. I got to tell you, the Carhartts that I was wearing, that at this point, I'm not going to buy them anymore. Let me show you. I'll show you a pair of them. And I've been wearing them for probably 5 years. These are about 5 months old, 4 or 5 months old. So we'll see. I'm not telling you the absolute truth on, because I've only got a few days on those, but these right now, to get in them is kind of hard, and it takes a while for them to kind of soften up too. So, okay. Anyway, it's brought to you by the Anyone Can Farm Tribe Plus, and we're going to be hosting the 13th annual Homestead Hog Harvest right here on Baker's Green Acres. Going to be coming up the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We have 4 seats available, and I would really like to fill that class. I mean, we're going to do the class either way. It's, it's great if you have, 8 people instead of 12, but I'd really like to have 12. So if you would like to come to the class, this is coming up. It's going to be the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of November. It starts on a Friday afternoon, gives people time to travel. And then we finish up Sunday about 3, 4, like that. But if people have to leave, they can. And we start with 2 live hogs, and we finish up with bacons and sausages and hams, and learn a lot of cuts, learn how to break a pig down into primal cuts. It's a really good class. I'm compiling a list. Dogs barking out there. I'm compiling a list of people who have come to the class and then have gone to their residence, their farm, their homestead, whatever, and then they've pulled it off. They've started with a live pig and gone through the process. And my feeling on this now has changed because I talked with a kid this weekend, and who was it? That's too bad. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, down at the DeCleric's house, they had a get together, and it was just like a harvest get together for their customers and friends. And they invited us to go, and we went. It was really neat because it was all other homesteaders. There was like 70, 80 people there. It was really neat. They had a serving line, and it rained, but we still had fun because we were with our friends, and I just had a really good time. But we were talking about people who had taken the class and gone home. Oh, I know who it was. It was the Rousers. Jason and Jessica Rousers. And they announced to me, I hadn't seen them since the class last October. And they announced to me, hey, we killed our first pig. It was a little one for a barbecue, but we did it. And, other people started asking, and we were sitting around a campfire, so there was a lot of conversation going on. And Jason said, well, what the class did for me is it gave me the confidence to make mistakes, right? The confidence to make mistakes. And I thought, wow, that's profound, because I think sometimes as Americans, we feel as though if we're going to do a process, and it could be anything, doesn't have to be we kind of feel as though, well, if we don't do it right, it's not worth doing it all. I don't know about that. If you have a need for a shelter, let's say, but you don't have a square and a skill saw, you still need that shelter. And it may not be perfectly square, but you need it. And so anything that you build is going to be better than saying, no, I'm just not going to do it because I don't have a square. You know what I mean by a square, or a tape measure or whatever. But in animal processing, people kind of feel like, oh, I don't want to wreck it. And so we had this, a friend of mine that helped me learn how to do a lot of this would say, it'll make a turd. I'd cut a pork chop off and it'd be a little skinny on one end. That'll make a turd, which is true. What's the ultimate goal? Make a turd. With that in mind, it gives you a lot of leeway. So anyway, this guy said that it gave me the class that he was in gave him the confidence to make mistakes. And there was a lot of conversation about things like that at the get together at the Clerics. And so on my way home from the Clerics, I had like an hour and a half drive, and people were falling asleep. And because we stayed late, we were the last ones to leave. Yeah, of course. And I got to thinking about what a profound experience that was for me to go to the Cleric's house and for them to gather up 80 people that are now their tribe, their very local tribe. They're an hour and a half south of me. They are one of a group of people that have taken what I say to heart. I say, hey, don't not do a class like I do. Actually copy my class, because we want thousands of people to be performing this class and teaching others. It's a principle that you learn in the military. You always want to train your replacement. And at this point now, there's a lot of replacements out there for me, because we've been doing this class in the Anyone Can Farm tribe and the experience and everything. And there's a lot of people that have picked up knowledge, and then they've gone out and they've used it, and then they get smarter at it, and then they get braver at the processes that they've done, and who knows what else they've done. Who knows? But I do want to compile a list of people who have taken the class and then gone home and then pulled it off. And it's a pretty good list. I know Stumpos did it. The Clerics did it. I went through this one time, and there was just a whole bunch from Brian Jacobs did it. Crunchy Mama. No, I don't think they took our class when they did it. He went learn from somebody else. It's a pretty long list. I'll have to sit down and spend some time on it. But we got to talking at the campfire, and I realized that maybe if I was going to pass on some information and I wanted to save a little time in the lives of the people that listen to this, then a good topic would be picking your process. Because the homestead isn't necessarily a place where you do one thing. It could be. You could, your whole life could be you raise potatoes. One kind of potatoes, Yukon Gold, that's it. And when you get together with people, you want to talk homesteading. If they're talking chickens, you're not interested. You're just not, you're bored with that. But if they want to talk potatoes, oh, yeah, let's talk about potatoes. You know everything there is to know about potatoes. You can boil them, you can broil them, you can bake them, all that whole thing. So it can be just one thing, or it can be two things, but it could be 15 things. It could be. And I think the nature of the person that gets into homesteading is a curious person, and somebody that when they dream up a process, or they see someone else do a process and they say, I want to do that process, and they picture themselves. They picture themselves going off into the horizon, eating a spare rib, maybe, if it's chicken, if it's beef process, pork processing. So I think, though, that we could save some time if we had a conversation about, well, what processes are you going to do on your homestead? And I think the processes, in a lot of ways, to me, I mean, do what you want, really. I mean, I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I don't want to be dog about people what to do unless um, I think the processes that you pick on your homestead is sort of like companion planting. You know, if you plant certain plants together, they do better. I don't know why, but they do. So the processes that you pick, uh, let's say you've picked your first process. Well, what would go nice with your to be your second process? What would what would dovetail with your first process as your second process? And then maybe looking down the road a little ways, hey, what could be your third? Well, if ultimately you want to get here, uh, what are the steps to get there? Right. So I'm working on something right now, and it's been a long time coming. It really has been a long time coming. We realized a long time ago. I mean, this is before we even got here. This is back in Montana, my first homestead. That and this might be from my previous career field, military thinking. You never want to, or in any process that you're doing, you want to have control of as much of the process as you can. Because if you have to farm out something to somebody else and you can't control them, well, they could screw everything up. Everything. They could just not do what they say they're going to do, and you're high and dry. So way back then in Montana, I learned through a friend of mine that was actually a butcher. He does butchering for a living, and he's still doing it now, 20 years later. That we could do it. He came to my house one time. He was one of these guys that would drive around in a 1-ton truck, and he had a gin pole off the back of it. And you'd call him and say, "Hey, I'd like to get a couple beef processed." He would come out, put the old 22 out the window of his Rumble in 1-ton, and knock beef down, and then go over there. And while he's got a Marlboro hanging out of his mouth, just with a knife, hooves flying and heads flying off and everything, so good. I never saw anybody work like this guy. Dan Isaacson. We were good friends. We still are good friends, but I just don't see him anymore. And he said to me one time when he was at my place, he says, "How come you ain't doing this?" And what he was saying to me, now I realize, is, "You're an able-bodied guy. Why aren't you doing this? Look at all the other stuff that you do around here, but you don't do this. Why is it you don't do this?" And I was kind of like, I don't know. You shoot one of my own animals. Ooh, that's rough. The first time that I processed a pig on my farm, I did not shoot it. Bob Reed shot it, AKA Meat. He shot that pig because I couldn't do it. And I just, at that time, I was like, I don't think I can do this. And I was grown up, I had shot a deer by then, few. I'd shot, ducks and quail and stuff like that. But I just didn't think I'd shoot my own pig. And I did not shoot my own pig until my oldest son, Kyle, said, "Hey, I want to shoot this pig," because he had seen my buddy Bob shoot pigs, and he wanted to do it. And he had got him a new lever action 30-30 for shooting deer, and he wanted to shoot a pig with it. And first pig he shot, he set it to squealing, and then he just vapor locked. And so I got the gun from him, and I boom, and that wasn't that bad, but that was the first one I shot, and it was out of necessity to do it. But so anyway, that's where I started. And when we got here, I knew I was going to build a butcher shop. I knew, because I realized that if I was all the animals that we produced here, if I had to farm them out to somebody else, I was at their mercy. And we had a bad experience when we had several bad experiences, but one I remember really well. We took some animals to our local guy, and then we went to pick them up for farmers market the next day, and they weren't done. And so they said they'd be done, but they weren't. And then we went to farmers market the next day and didn't have anything. And I started to think, yeah, I need to be able to do this myself. And I think that's something that homesteaders need to look at, because I don't see, unless there's some dramatic changes coming soon, I don't see small slaughterhouses propagating. If anything, I see they're getting old and they're shutting down because everything's being centralized. And I think that's by design. But the way to run back at this is to set up your own processing right on your homestead. And there's no reason you can't do that. There's absolutely no reason why you can't do that. You might be thinking, oh, well, what about, should I check with the Department of Agriculture? No, don't do that. If you're butchering for yourself, it's between you and the animals that you do, and you're protected on your own property by the Fourth Amendment. No wiener from the Department of Agriculture can come storming in to private property. It's usually preceded by a phone call asking questions. But if by this point you don't know to not talk to those people, there's something wrong with you. They want to come by to help you with chores. No, it's always because they want to coerce you into some sort of licensing agreement or something like that. Anyway, you don't need that. And we could talk about that for a long time. I know there's always questions about that, but one of the processes that we've done really well with on this farm is butchering. That is a legitimate homestead process. And I can't say enough about that. That's why that's one of the main things that we teach is processing, because what we're trying to get across here is self-sufficiency. And, everybody starts out as you raise a few chickens, but then you wind up having to take them to somebody else to have them processed. So how self-sufficient are you? Well, I was able to provide water for these chickens, and I was able to provide food. Well, good on you, but there's more to it than that. There's way more to it. And so, but you have to make the decision that you're going to do it in order to do it. So we do the pastured poultry class in the spring, which has become a huge hit. I can't believe that. Year before last, we had 25 people. Last year, we had 20 people. Fun day. Butchered a lot of chickens too. And then the other big one is the Homestead Hog Harvest, which is coming up. And I highly, highly recommend these classes because you get to immerse yourself in a homestead that is very self-sufficient. It's very self-sufficient. So I feel like if we're going to have a conversation about picking your processes, I feel as though I can talk about a lot of processes because we do a lot of processes here. And at this point, we're doing them pretty good. I got to say, I kind of supervise a lot of these things. I'm the head engineer and builder. But after something's built, I have to hand it over to my kids, my wife and kids. We get them to the point of usability, and then it's like game on. And then, we'll get back to that when we can. But so let me share with you a process that I've been doing for, well, this is not our 19th year. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to be 20 years this coming May, right? I got out of the service in '04, so unbelievable. I will be out as long as I was in. 20 out, 20 in. All right, so on this property, we have the majority of what grows here is grass, right? I don't grow a lot of corn. Just we grow sweet corn in the garden and stuff, but we don't grow field corn. We don't do silage. I feel strongly about grass being what I want to feed my cows, and I feel very strongly. For me, I feel very strongly about grass fed the dairy cows. So some people don't, like Devin, my buddy Devin, he does not like grass fed beef. He says it tastes too mooey, he says. I don't get that. But I've had some of his beef that was finished silage. I didn't get that grass fed punch that comes through. I just didn't get it. And I never got actually satisfied from eating it. Where a steak, grass fed steak, I eat that and I'm good. I'm good. It's very important, guys. Very good.
Looks like you're live.
I don't have a chat.
There you
All
are.
right.
Okay, and I'll get on and.
Hey, look at everybody's still here. It says
Okay.
12 people are still on. You guys waited for me. My heart. Okay, well, what I was saying is I got a process going on that I've been working on for a long time. And what it is, with all the grass on this farm, and that's the way it was when I got here. Yep, here I am, Keith. We went along and we fences. So the entire farm is fenced off, and at that time, it was 78 acres. We fenced it off, and then we put in some cross fences here and there. So we have, paddocks that we made, and it wasn't done in one summer. It took time to do it. It really did. And then there was part of it that we didn't do, and man, the cows would always find their way over there, and they got out a couple of times. One time they went all the way over to my neighbor's a couple miles away, and so it took time, and fences cost money, fence posts, and the time to do it, and all that, and the know-how to do it. It takes time, and the fences have to be built good, or else you wind up building them again. So, well, then we started putting beef cows out, and at that time we would, and I didn't have a trailer, so I had to hire a guy to come with his trailer, and then we had to try and get him in the trailer and get him to the processor, and then we would get beef back, and oh, this is great, we got our own beef, it's really good. Then we started having problems with the processor, had problems with this one over here, and then we had problems with this one over here. There's just the same old, like, doesn't feel like we got everything back. We don't feel like this was our beef. On and on it went, and real hack job, poor packaging. We start doing our own. And that was not always, it's not easy, because all we had to hang the beef up was off the bucket on our loader, and then we just had the tools that we had for breaking the beef down and sawing it in half and all that stuff. But still, it was working out because we were filling our freezer with beef. It was our beef. We knew it was our beef. We weren't spending a lot of time on the road, going here and there to pick stuff up and writing big fat checks to the processor for our own beef back. And so that was going well. Well, this year, so this is our 20th year at it. Is this our 20th year? Yeah, we'll complete 20 years. No, it's our 19th year. So, so this year, I wanted a better process of killing beef, and I've been planning it for a while now, a couple of years. I've been planning on putting in what's called a high rail, right? Need a rail for a trolley and a hoist on there so you can pick the beef up. So it's got to be high enough. So you start about 14 feet. That's about the height you want to start at. And it's got to be strong enough that you can lift the beef up. And if you're going to do one, maybe you'd want to do two. So 2 beef, 3,500 pounds, maybe, might be. And so it's no small undertaking to build something like this. And, there was some logistical problems as far as where I was going to get the materials and stuff like that. But anyway, it has all come together. And Keith Sutton gave me 2 telephone poles, right, to put the beam on. Parker cut the wood for me to build a beam. got it all put together, got it put on there. And then over the last couple of days, I've been building the rail. I got it finished just before I came in. I mean, it is finished. And first thing in the morning, I'm going to lift it up in place and get it bolted in. I've got to go buy some bolts. I need some big long bolts to go through the telephone pole, 4 of them. And then I need a bunch of long lag bolts to go up into the beam, 12 of them. But it's going to be really, really strong. I'm going to put an electric hoist on it. And it rounds out the process of beef, right? So these cows, a lot of them that are here, were born here. And then they're here for about 2 years, 2 summers. And then the winter after that is when we knock them off. And then they are, killed by us. They are butchered by us. They are packaged by us. And then we are the one that makes turds out of them. So we own quite a bit of the process. I'd say we own a lot of the process. Some of my calves I buy from my brother-in-law. They're Hereford calves. Because my cows are dairy cows. So a lot of the males that we have that we don't use as replacement heifers, we're putting them out on grass and just turn them into beef. We steer them. Steering means we castrate them, which we do ourselves. And it is a process that works good here. Now, when I pick this process, I didn't really know what I was doing. I really didn't. The first group of cows that went through here were steers, and they were Holstein steers. And no, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was so afraid they were going to get sick and all kinds of stuff. Now, with as much time as we've been doing it and the things that we've learned along the way, I have a lot of confidence that they're going to be very good, healthy animals, and they're going to be well fed. They're going to stay where they're supposed to stay. They have a routine that they're in. There's 2 groups of my beef cows. There's the yearlings, and then there's the 2 yearlings. And then when the 2 yearlings are gone this winter, we will add calves, and then we'll have calves and the yearlings, and then by next year we'll have the 1 yearlings and the 2 yearlings, right? So that's the process. And all of that took time to go through it, to kind of have it in your mind. Oh, I see how this works. And then moving them around the farm, right? So that we don't wear the grass out in any one place to the point where, the grass doesn't come back, right? So it's a process, and it took a long time to get it to the point where I really kind of understand it and I'm doing it well. And now I've actually got a high rail that's going to be under a roof. Did I mention that? I've got the rafters for that, thanks to Parker. And the first time I use this is going to be a real kick. Like those of you that have been here have seen that our system for picking animals up is with a chain hoist. You're pulling on a chain hoist. Choo, 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 choo. You got to get good at it. But this, I'm going to get a power winch, right? 110 volt power winch, so that I can go over and push a button. And it'll just take it up and bring that beef up. And I'm building a corral right near there, so I can move the beef up into there long before. If I wanted to move them up in there and give them a lot of grain, you could, if you wanted to really see the marbling come through. I don't know as I'd do that, but just so I could bring them up, let them get calmed down. I don't like shooting cattle in front of other cattle. They don't like it either. When you shoot one of their buddies, you can tell there's a problem there. So we like to separate them before we shoot them. If they're ever in with the milk cows, you don't do it, because the milk cows, they're very human orientated, and when you do something like that, they don't like you for a couple days. So anyway, it's a whole system, and you could put that system under the category grass beef, grass-fed beef. But what does it dovetail with? What does it dovetail with? Well, like I said, a lot of the calves come from the milk cows. If you're going to milk cows, they have to have a calf every year to what they call freshen, right? And that's when their milk comes in, because they're what do they call them? Anyway, they have mammary glands, and they come in, after they have a calf, same as human women do. After they have a baby, they get engorged with milk, and then they start to milk too. They bag up, like that's what cattle do. You can tell. Oh, she's getting close. She's bagging up. Anyway, so that process of milking cows goes very nicely with grass-fed beef, because we take the calves from the milk cows, we take them, and then we put them in the herd with the beef running around out, totally separate. They're totally separate. They never see each other, and it's set up like that. You have these two processes, milk cows and beef cows. If they see each other, oh, they'll be mooing at each other, and hey, I got to get over there. I got to see those gals, But once you get them separated, and then they can't see each other, then you're good. Then you're good. And so that's where we are right now. It took a while to get there. So there's two processes that go together, right? And you see, but there is another process that's happening at the same time as this is happening, and that is the composting process. I'm a big composter, right? I love composting. It's one of the funnest things that I do. Plowing snow is really fun. I really love that. Today I spent the day welding, and that's one of my favorite things to do too. It's the coolest thing, cutting pieces of metal so they fit together, and then being able to weld them together, and it's just really strong, and you can build really cool stuff out of it. But my dairy cows are now kind of restricted to a small part of the farm, because we don't want them walking long distances and expending too much energy, because we don't want them to lose weight, and they're putting a lot of energy into the milk that they're giving us, and so we want to manage their weight and keep the weight on them. So walking them for a half a mile up to the house every day is not a good idea. The beef cows, they'll come along too. So then you wind up having a whole bunch of people walking up to the house, and you might have one beef cow that doesn't want to come, and then there's a big problem because I'm not leaving, and the ones that do go are like, aren't you coming? And they're all mooing at each other. So now that they're separated, I have 5 milk cows. They hang as a group. They stay up close to the barn. We can let them go like over onto my neighbors a little bit, and then out into my top field, and it's really, really good. It works out really well. But then the manure, we have to take care of the manure. And so then I'm able to scoop up the manure as sort of like a cleaning process. So I'm scraping out their loafing area. With the cows, sometimes they like to lay around in the basement of the barn because it's cool in there, and they can get away from the flies and stuff. But when they're laying down, they manure. And then they like to lay around in there in the wintertime because I bed it for them. And so I wind up with all this manure. So now I'm hauling the manure to a different place on the farm, piling it up, and now I have a composting program. right? So there's 3 processes that I have going now, and they all go together. They all go together. And then part of the composting program, this will be point number 3. Okay, so you got beef cows, you got milk cows, and you have composting. This is under composting, would be the spreading of the compost once it's made. And I'm spreading it on fields that I'm going to cut hay off of. And once I've got the hay off, I'm going to let the cows graze it for the second cutting. So the composting program or process complements the milk process, which complements the beef process. See? So when you're picking your processes, you have to force yourself to look down the road and say, okay, where am I going to be in 5 years? Where do I and put that against where you ultimately want to land? Where do you ultimately want to land? 20 years here, it's just coming into focus. Honestly, it's just coming into focus. I have all these processes that I'm pretty good at. You know, I'm pretty good fence builder. I'm a pretty good butcher. I'm a pretty good teacher. Pretty good carpenter. Metal fabricator, I can do that pretty well. Fairly good plumber, actually. I'm surprised how good I am at plumbing. Midwifery, I dabble in that as well. Yeah, I'm good at that. So I'm good at a lot of things, and I'm real interested in more things. Automotive maintenance, right? Maintenance, but I don't do shoot. I can shoot pretty good, long distance, right? So I'm a pretty good hunter. I got a lot of things that I'm pretty good at, and I still want to do some new processes. And I do want to talk about a new process that I'm thinking about. And I'll get into that in a minute. Don't let me forget. I think we're still on. Are we still on here? Guys, can I get a thumbs up? I thought for a minute I saw Lone Star there. I did. Certified grade bolts are not cheap. What did that permit cost? The permit was free because I issued it to myself. All right. Do we get a song for waiting? The Ghost is with us. David Duncan's with us. Keith S. is with us. The Lone Star. Tennessee Patriot. Permits not required for free people. Permission not needed. Yeah. Right on, Tennessee. Keep a pocket permit on me all the time. It's called the Constitution. Okay, we're still good. So you can see how these processes go together. And when you're setting up your homestead, you got to pick, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? If you don't know, you can just pull one out and go for it, and then see, well, what goes with that. And a lot of people will start with, if they're going to do livestock, they'll start with egg laying chickens. Sometimes you might live someplace where you can't have them, or they say you can't have them and you don't want to fight with them, so you might want to pick something like gardening. That's a great way to go. We garden a lot. I love gardening, and I love orcharding, and I don't know if guys that run orchards think that I'm an orcharder, but I planted 8 trees last fall, and they're doing good this fall. I've got a couple other trees that did well that I've planted in the past. All my trees did really good this year. Got a lot of fruit. Had just so much fun doing that. It's so much fun. So yeah, let me give you an example of another process that I thought of and how it fits. I'm mean, all the time I'm telling you guys, oh yeah, we run a chicken processing business, right? I hear somebody's phone. Could it be mine? No. Well, anyway, our chicken processing business goes kind of like this. We process chickens for people that live around us, right? It's called custom processing. It's just a service that we provide. There's no licensing or anything like that. There used to be. I ditched all that because it was useless. I was just paying money to the Department of Agriculture, and who knows what they do with it. They probably give it to Hamas. Who knows? But we take in generally nearly 200 chickens a week on Thursday evening between 5 and 7, right? So we tell them, you got to be here between 5 and 7, otherwise we're closed. And they come in, they drop their chickens off, and they have to pick them up the next day between 5 and 7. Or else if you don't set parameters like that, they'll be like, I can come at 11 o'clock at night, or I can come the next day, Saturday at 6:30 in the morning. And that. So we say, nope, this is the time. We're not working after 7 o'clock. We're off, right? We're not gonna. So we do that process, and doing that process, you look at it and you say, okay, we charge $4 per bird, $4.75 per bird to process them, which seems like a lot to me, but Jill set those prices, and I'm fine with it. People don't bat an eye at it. And so then we get the feathers from their chicken, and we get the guts from their chicken, and the head and the feet, usually. And they expect us to just dispose of it. And that's not a problem because I also raise Mangalitsa pigs. So one day a week, my pigs are getting fresh chicken. They get the guts and the head and the feet. I break it into 3 groups because I have 3 groups going on the farm. These ones get some, these ones get some, these ones get some. They totally clean it up. It's gone. It is gone so quick. And then the feathers, they go in the compost pile. So if I didn't have a compost pile going, I would need one, or else my feathers would have to go in the trash can and have the guys pick it up, which would cost me money. So this way here, the feathers are actually, I'm turning them from a liability, something I would have to pay to have taken away, to an asset, because it adds something really special to the compost pile. It really does too, because what I do with the compost pile is I usually have it piled up into a peak. And then on Friday, when we're done processing and I've got all the feathers in the front end loader, I go over there and I push the front end loader down on the peak. I cut into the peak and pull it back. So I'm sort of like splitting it like this. And then I dump the feathers down in there. And then I push it back together and just let it sit. I don't mix it up at all. I just let it sit. So you have all those wet feathers with all the water and the manure water and all that stuff in the pile. And the pile's hot already. And then, it'll be like Thursday or something. I'll go over to the pile and I'll just pull it apart and just watch the steam billow out. And if the feathers are broken down enough, I'll just mix the whole thing together, so I'll just pick it up and dump it, pick it up and dump it, pick it up and dump it, like 5 or 6 times. It's really fun, and it actually smells quite nice. And, I'm doing something with cast-offs that when I finally take that compost, load it on my big truck and take it out to the field, and put it in the spreader and run it up and down the field in the spreader, I'm doing a lot of good. I'm going to get a lot more hay off that field, or a lot more green grass off that field, because of the compost. And if people weren't bringing me chicken feathers, I would be going to look for stuff like that, because you need stuff to go in your compost pile. So again, that is a process, the chicken processing business, that dovetails with what I have going on the farm. If I didn't have pigs, what would you do with all those guts? I don't know. I don't know. A third of a yard. So the bucket on my front end loader, that's a lot of guts. You could put them in a hot compost pile. You could. The problem with that is then every raccoon and possum and porcupine in a 30-mile radius would be smelling that, and they would be coming. As it is, they come anyway, but not that many of them, because every now and then there'll be that chicken smell goes into the pile. And then I'm sure, because I've noticed when you drive past it, sometimes you can smell it, and it's not really offensive, but you can smell it. So I'm sure that animals that are down close to the ground, that are way more in tune with their senses than we are, I bet you they can really smell it. So I know we've got a couple of possums that come to it, because I can see the remnants of them, and they don't do anything. So I don't bother them. Nothing really messes with our livestock anymore. So I don't really bother them. So they don't bother me. I don't bother them. So that's a good example of how things have to fit together. So when you're picking a process, think about it. If you're just going to be gardening and you're going to have all this refuse off of your garden, what are you going to do with that? Maybe your process is going to be, well, I'll make it all into biochar, and then I can intern it back into the garden. That might be a good way to go. Or this refuse could go to the pigs, so I'll have a few pigs. Okay, good. Pigs are always good, because they'll eat things that you can't eat, and then you can eat them. I am finding that I don't crave pigs as much as I used to. I don't think it. And now we're doing lambs, so we're going to get to eat quite a bit of lamb this fall too. Brian Denob, Bob Denob. Ooh, I missed that one. Hope you're ready for the winter